Over to you, Cameron.
Thank you so much, Caitlin, and really appreciate all those housekeeping notes. Folks, as I said, you're very welcome to week 6 of our webinar series. It's kind of bizarre to think that we're now 6 weeks into the series, but we're going to have a really fantastic conversation today about youth-led social innovation and how we can be the change makers of not only tomorrow, but also of today. We have some wonderful speakers, Brian, Megan, Angel, and Ronnie, and our wonderful facilitator, Ruth Larry, who's going to navigate through this conversation for us. So it's my job just to introduce you to our wonderful facilitator, Dr. Ruth Larry Sharinza, who is a South African medical doctor, entrepreneur, and social impact leader. She graduated cum laude with an MB, CHB, and a BMed Sci Honours in medical biochemistry from the University of Cape Town. She's a Talwars Network Next Generation Leader and consultant for the For Youth by Youth movement. She was awarded the 2024 Bongani Mayosa National Student Academic Prize. She has held leadership roles in the Rural Doctors Association of South Africa. She's a TEDx speaker and the UCT Health Sciences Student Council. A former Klaus-Jürgen Bath Scholar and a Global Surgery Fellow, she co-founded Chewy, one of Africa's first award-winning pet telehealth startups. She also delivered a TEDx talk on true youth success through curriculum reform and civic engagement. Ruth Larry is passionate about health, social justice, and entrepreneurship, and works to build sustainable, youth-driven solutions for Africa's future. So it's well-placed and well equipped to handle this conversation. So Ruth Larry, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Cameron, and thank you so much for the opportunity to facilitate today's webinar series. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's on this call, depending on where you're joining us from. It is such a joy and an honor to welcome you to this important conversation on youth-led innovation for social change. As Cameron mentioned, my name is Vutlhari Shirinza, and I'm delighted to be your facilitator today as we go through this conversation, which is so critical in the world right now. So today's conversation is under the For Youth by Youth movement, which is an initiative that's built by young people for young people to reimagine leadership, equity, and impact on our terms. So before I get started, I'd just like to share my screen and the presentation that I have. I hope you can all see that.
We can.
All right, awesome. So today I want to speak directly to the most important and most powerful, but mostly the most underestimated force on this planet, which is young people with ideas. So we're usually told that the world is broken, that the systems don't work, that inequity is too deep, and the climate crisis is too far gone. But today we're not here to rehearse those problems. We're just here to reimagine solutions. Because ultimately, the youth-led innovation isn't a buzzword. It's a revolution, and it's happening right now. So what actually is youth-led innovation? Well, it's when young people use their creativity, their lived experiences, tech savviness, and fearless thinking to address real-world challenges in new and unexpected ways. So unlike top-down solutions, youth-led innovations are community-driven because they usually come from the people that are closest to the problem. They are boldly imaginative because young people aren't stuck in the way that things have always been. And mostly they are resourceful because we tend to innovate even when the resources are limited. So young innovators don't wait for the perfect moment. They start with what they have, where they are, and they build forward. But why are youth-led innovations so critical? And not just the nice to have, but why are they absolutely essential? Well, in this day and age, we're actually inheriting a world in crisis. From climate change and unemployment to inequality and violence, young people today are inheriting global challenges that older generations unfortunately failed to solve. Secondly, as the young generation, we think differently. Young minds are wired for possibility, not just limitation. We ask, why not, instead of what's the protocol? And that's why some of the boldest breakthroughs in social change have come from people who are under the age of 30. Thirdly, we are digital natives. We live at the intersection of technology, culture, and social consciousness. We don't just consume tools, we actually create them. Whether these are apps for mental health, platforms for activism, AI for education, we're redesigning society from the ground up. And we build for impact and not ego. Youth-led innovation is deeply values-based. It's not about status or profit. It's about justice, access, inclusion, and dignity. So let's bring this to life with a few powerful examples. So in Malawi, William Kamkwambe, at just 14 years old, built a windmill from scrap parts to generate electricity for his family. So he changed his entire village with just a library, a book, and a dream. In South Africa, a young innovator named Sivuyile Phezulu founded Indalo Water Technologies, which is a water and wastewater engineering company that treats wastewater on site into reusable gray water. And this was founded in response to Cape Town's Day Zero water crisis when Cape Town was experiencing a water shortage. And in Malaysia, students have founded a project called 30,000 Hours, which aims to address the post-pandemic learning loss by bridging the digital gap and ensuring that students have access to education in the post-pandemic era. Let's take a look at this video. I hope you were all able to see that and that it wasn't just playing on my side. But essentially, these young people didn't wait for the world to change. They saw a need and they became the answer. And honestly, you can do the same for your community. So this is why the For Youth by Youth movement is absolutely crucial. It's more than a platform, but it's an ecosystem that's built around one belief. So when we give young people the right tools, the right support, and the right space, we help them to innovate for the future. So for example, at the For Youth by Youth movement, we offer mentorship, which will help to turn your ideas into strategy. We provide funding, which will help you move from concept to creation, training, which will help to sharpen your skills and scale on impact, and wellness so that you don't burn out while on the front lines. But what about you? What can you do with where you are? Firstly, start where you are. Look around your school, your community, your country. What needs fixing? What makes you angry? That's your entry point, and that's what you should start at. Secondly, use what you know. Innovation isn't always flashy. It's often simple, smart, and deeply human. Combine what you're passionate about with what your community needs. Build together. Collaboration is innovation's superpower. No one innovates in isolation. Your idea and someone else's skill equals exponential impact. Prototype, test, learn, and repeat. Perfection is not the goal, but progress is. Every step you take makes the path clearer for others. So ultimately, as the young generation, we are not waiting for the future to be handed to us. We are designing it, we are coding it, prototyping it, and dreaming it into being. We are innovating not for our recognition, but for justice, not for profit, but for people, not for legacy, but for liberation. So, to every young person in this room, on this call, in this world, you don't need to be famous to be a founder. You don't need a degree to make a difference. You just need to start. Because youth-led innovation isn't the hope of tomorrow, it's the heartbeat of today. So today's conversation brings together an incredible lineup of innovators and leaders who are not just talking about change, but they are actually living it, building it, and scaling it in deeply inspiring ways. So I'll now hand over to Cameron just to briefly introduce them before we hand over to our next part of our discussion today. Thank you so much.
Hello. Apologies, Gloria. I thought that you were introducing them, but I am just pulling up my notes here. So happy
All right.
to do so. Thank you so much for that introduction. I think that video was a really powerful example of how when you bring young people together and give them space and support and those things that you talk about, mentorship, the difference that we can make. And I like what you said as well. I think that, we are an underestimated force within the world of how young people with an idea can really change a community. So I really appreciate that scene that you have set for us, as well as your own background in supporting youth-led social innovation. So thank you so much. So we have three, possibly four. We're just waiting for our fourth speaker to join us. But we've got three speakers on the line already. So I'm going to introduce them one by one and then hand back over to Larry to facilitate the conversation. So first up, we've got Angel Solis, who's passionate about social impact, entrepreneurship, and innovation. He leads digital transformation programs for SMEs across LATAM at Technologica de Monterrey, helping businesses leverage technology for sustainable growth. He's the founder of Cuculmat. He designs learning experiences that empower Indigenous youth in Mexico, bridging tradition and innovation to foster cultural pride and tackle inequalities. He has participated in international leadership initiatives such as the Next Generation Leaders Program that both Larry and I have also graduated from, and Active Citizens. He has also spoken at the Latin American Impact Investment Forum and contributed to the Stanford Social Innovation Review on Espanol, advocating for education, technology, and cultural preservation as drivers of systematic change. Second, we have Megan Mukuri, who is an Ashoka Fellow and founder of Zana Africa. Megan is a recognized leader in the field of gender equity and specifically the role mental health plays in accessing full rights. With 23 years of experience in nonprofit and for-profit leadership in Kenya, she has successfully built Zana Africa from ideation into a recognized leader internationally, creating holistic impact through policy, product innovation, sanitary pad sales, right-based health education, and social and behavioral change communication that has benefited over 400,000 people. Last, we have for right now, Brian, who is a versatile software engineer and entrepreneur based in Nairobi, Kenya. He's the co-founder and CEO of Sidixo Labs. He leads a software consultancy and business-to-business SaaS aggregator, leveraging his extensive technical expertise and business acumen. With experience spanning infrastructure scalability, full stack development, and team leadership. Brian previously excelled as a senior software engineer at Tripoli.co, where he focused on enhancing tech infrastructure and cross-departmental collaboration. Beyond corporate roles, Brian is deeply involved in Kenya's tech community as co-organizer of the Vue.js Kenya, organizing developer meetups and fostering knowledge sharing. His diverse background includes positions at NCBA Group, Cloud Factory, and Elitasoft, complemented by entrepreneurial ventures like Ionics LLC, where he developed healthcare solutions. A Kenyatta University computer science graduate with additional certifications in networking and cybersecurity, Brian combines technical prowess with strategic vision to deliver innovative solutions. So, as I said at the beginning, I think we have a wonderful lineup of speakers right now. So I'm going to hand you back over to Larry to continue the conversation.
All right. Thank you so much, Cameron. And thank you so much to all our wonderful panelists today. Thank you for taking the time out to join us for this really important conversation. And I'm just so excited to hear all your thoughts, especially on youth-led innovation for social change. So I will start off with Angel. Always lovely seeing you again. And please, can you just briefly introduce yourself and also share your brief insights on youth-led innovation?
Yes, thank you, Larry. I'm so happy to be here and really honored. It's a beautiful space to share. And thank you all for your introduction. It's quite amazing. Let me share my screen and I will talk you more about my organization in Mexico while I will talking more about my experience. So my organization is an NGO called Cuculmat, is based in Mexico, and we work with indigenous communities throughout Mexico and Latin America. We are growing this year. We are getting bigger, and yeah, that's exciting. So we work with education, technology, and culture to preserve this indigenous heritage and empower children and youth from different communities. So I started this project when I was 17 years old, 7 years ago. And yeah, I started as a volunteer, like giving some classes, some teaching classes to indigenous communities in areas of STEAM. So when I um, when I see some inequalities in education, in this digital gap between the cities and the underestimated and underrated communities, I also see this rapid loss of native languages and ancestral knowledge. I see these deep educational inequalities and also a growing disconnect between youth and their cultural roots. I am from indigenous communities. My grandparents are from the Mayan culture, that is a huge culture in Mexico, but with a lot of challenges, you know? So another of the challenges that we have here is this limited access to technology and development opportunities, such leadership opportunities, job opportunities, and also education opportunities. And for that, we have these strategic initiatives in three main areas. We work with education, we develop a cultural curriculum focused on history, language, uh, wisdom, social fabric, and we promote these intercultural dialogues and innovation talks between indigenous communities across Latin America. And for the technology area, we provide some classes for childrens in education in topics such as math, robotics, environmental, mental health, and another topics that are really, really powerful for them. And also, we are prototyping the use of artificial intelligence to preserve these native languages through material that is collected by these youth. For example, um, material from pictures, videos, and also like voice notes and a lot of these kind of materials. And for the part of culture, we are working on promote this cultural ambassador program when we are like training ambassadors, young ambassadors to preserve this indigenous wisdom. And also, we are working on develop this innovation lab methodology when we are like creating solutions from the Jode thinking, from John lead. So this is what we are working, and also we are like these priorities this year. So first of all, we are finishing our registers as an NGO officially in Mexico, launching some community robotics programs and doing some collective arts exhibition, and also this geographic expansion to more and more regions. And as can you see, we have like these three main pillars like technology, culture in the middle, and community has our power and has all that we are involved. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here, really honored, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Engel. It was so interesting hearing about all that Kukulmat does. And I love that you especially started at such a young age of 17 and you've been doing this for the past 7 years. So that's really inspirational for all the young people on this call today. I'm certainly one of them. And thank you so much just for introducing yourselves and telling us more on what you do. So I'll now jump over to Megan. And Megan, you can just unmute and introduce yourself and tell us more about, what you do, which space you're involved in, and also where you are right now, because you gave us a brief intro of that. So we just like to hear more about you. Over to you.
Great. Thank you all so much. It's really a pleasure to be here. I am an American, but I've been based for 24 years in Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm a Kenyan citizen, married, and have one child who are both Kenyan. I'm here in Geneva right now at the World Health Assembly. I was privileged to be part of the Reckitt Access Accelerator. Reckitt has the brands Durex and Dettol, for those who might know those. And we're doing some really exciting co-creation opportunities to expand access to sexual and reproductive health and rights together for Gen Z, essentially. So I'm at the World Health Organization at the exact moment. I don't have any slides. I just thought I'd do a little show and tell and conversation. You basically want me to give an overview right now and address a bit of the youth-led innovation. That's the question?
Exactly that, Megan.
Beautiful. So we have a sanitary pad brand called Mia. I began my journey in menstrual health when I was working with girls who had left the streets. I found out that sanitary pads were a #2 biggest budget cost, and sometimes expense can be a key driver of innovation. At the same time, I was having a lot of late night conversations with these kids and realized that they didn't get any answers to their health and safety questions. So normal body changes during puberty, issues of urinary tract infections or STDs, how to say no to unwanted sex, how to protect yourself, all of these questions. And when they didn't have these answers, their lives really derailed with trauma and many other things. And so I realized uniquely that we needed to combine sanitary pads and rights-based health education to address a key barrier to poverty elimination and gender equality. I started in policy. So I was the youngest incoming president of a Rotary Club at 26. So I'm no longer a youth, but I was when I started this. And I leveraged that access to launch the world's first ever National Sanitary Towels campaign. We now call them pads. I think towel sounds awful. Nobody wants to use a towel to manage their menstruation. But we were able to launch this with the Ministry of Education. They had their first ever gender officer that they brought in that year. This was in 2006, so I'm dating myself a little bit. And I think that's really started what's become a very big global movement around ending period poverty. But it wasn't enough to just do the policy. I think you need three things. You need the policy advocacy for systems change. You need the products, and then you need the reproductive health education. And for those of you who aren't in this area, that the education, products, and policy is probably a trifecta that really helps create sustained systems change. So what we've been able to do, everything has been co-created with our end consumers. So we were actually the first African woman on a pad brand, which sounds like a no-brainer, except for that at the time when I launched this, we had a white woman with long blonde hair and a bonnet on one of the sanitary pads that was in the market. And that was so offensive to me that there was no representation on the African continent of African women on products sold in Africa. And so I hope that we've done a little systems change there. But now we also have a hotline and a chat bot on all of our sanitary pads, on every single pad and pack and poster, as well as a curriculum that we're embedding into the government curriculum on reproductive health. And what this does is solve that problem of the health education and access. So anybody can call or text because it's really about dignity through choice. Younger people want to text, older people want to talk for a long time. And what we are is a concierge. So we will answer rights-based questions or answer questions in a rights-based framework, judgment-free on any questions. And then if people need referrals, we can refer them onto local and digital points of care. So we're really kind of healing the health ecosystem, strengthening the connectivities, and allowing somebody at the point of their need to come to us and help us triage where they need to go. And this is everything from people fleeing persecution for being part of the queer community in Kenya to girls who are escaping gender-based violence from their uncles or things like that. And we've even helped people get that legal care that they need and the psychosocial care that they need. We've seen rapists actually get jailed. So it's been this beautiful movement to really activate the wonderful people that are already on the ground that want to help folks, but connecting them at the right time. And so that's essentially what we're doing. We're about to launch diapers as well and emerge more into kind of caregiving over key moments in time. And so I think that's one of the last things I want to just reflect is that one can start with a very clear North Star of what you want to do. But as you start succeeding in that, it might expand. And I think for those of us who just are so purpose driven, if we hit a milestone, we then move the goalpost and keep trying to innovate. So hopefully in a couple years' time, we'll actually have our own factory to manufacture with intellectual property that we have to make from agricultural waste. We'll be serving, right now we're serving about 120,000 people a month. We hope to be serving 1 million in the next year and a half. And so those are kind of some of the things that we're doing. And a lot of the innovation has also come from barriers we've experienced. Like the curriculum that's now embedding into the government curriculum for classes 4 through 8 came because we had to outsource our manufacturing to China and couldn't put health information inside the pad package. And so I think the last thing I wanted to share is sometimes when you hit a barrier, it can actually unlock more innovation, and that can be very exciting. So I think I'll end there. I don't know how much time I've taken, but I don't want to go over time.
That's so amazing, Megan. Thank you so much,
Thanks.
firstly, for sharing and all the wonderful work that you've done. I love how you said education plus policy plus products equals sustainable system change. And you can honestly apply that whether you're in tech, whether you're in farming, whether you're in ending period poverty as you are. So that's absolutely brilliant. And congratulations on all the work you've done this far. I'll now jump over to Brian. And Brian, you can just also briefly introduce yourself. Tell us a bit about what you're doing, which space you're in, and yeah, the floor is yours.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Brian. I'm really excited to be part of this discussion. Wow, coming from Megan, like that's really very interesting. But my history is in technology. And since I left high school and since I've learned through my entire career so far, my biggest objective has always been getting people the giving people the ability to actually use their innovation, their ideas, and transform them to reality. And the only way that that has been possible, from my perspective, has been through technology. Giving a case example for this is that many people, especially here in Kenya, I'm based in Kenya, and many people here in Kenya find themselves coming from a rural location, coming to Nairobi, which is the capital, or find themselves growing up in poverty within Nairobi. And once they reach of age, once they clear school, they don't really have an opportunity to use their ideas to build themselves and to impact community. But through technology, we have been able to transform that and give them that ability by showcasing what they can build and showcasing their innovations, and now giving them a platform to monetize it and make it sustainable for themselves. Part of what I do right now, I run a company called Studio X. And Studio X basically is a tech powerhouse that's creating products specifically to solve African problems. And the biggest African problem that we are currently solving right now is to enable and create opportunities for different communities within Africa. Um, our first product that we built is called Sold Out Africa, and it's an event ticketing company that's focused on artists and event organizers. And basically, our vision for Sold Out Africa is to be able to create opportunities for creatives and artists who, for years on end, have had a very hard time to be able to monetize their talent, to be able to be sustainable with their own resources. And so that's what you're doing right now. And I'm really glad to be part of this conversation and to share more about this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brian. I love that phrase, turning ideas into reality through technology. And like Megan, whichever space you're in, if it's a technological space, a digital space, you can turn ideas into reality for so many different in your life. So thank you so much. And I definitely look forward to hearing some of your answers to the questions and answers that we'll be posing. So I'll move over to that section and I'll start off with Engel. And Engel, I know you've worked to bridge the gap between digital innovation, especially with indigenous knowledge systems. And this has been in communities that are often excluded, from mainstream development conversations. So my question to you is, what have you learned about the power of culturally grounded innovation in driving systemic change?
You,
See,
Larry,
Engel.
for your question. It's really, really. Can you
All right.
confirm that you can hear me well?
Yes, yes,
My
I can hear you now.
my English, my internet is like a little bad. It's okay. Okay, thank you. So yeah, I was saying that it was really challenging when I started this project because I started to see this it's a systemic problem, you know. It's not only about education, it's not only about digital gap, it's a problem of a huge inequality. And when I started like looking for solution, as you say before, I started with the resources that I have at my hand at the moment, and I started like thinking to how to develop the best solution without so much resources. So I I um doesn't always come from creating something new, you know. It's often comes from remembering what we have forgotten. And with this, I started to bring this space to answer and like having the so in Cucumat, for example, when we bring ancestral knowledge, storytelling, and native languages, we combine this with, for example, innovation labs, robotics, some classes, we are creating ways of knowing that hold deep, place-based wisdom. And in that way, for example, the cultural growing allows you to imagine systems of belonging, of care, and justice that doesn't like that don't repeat like colonial frameworks, but actually heal them, you know? So we are in this way we are like working on having justice and having more impact jointly, you know. So yeah, that's what I can say, and yeah I I hope you hear my answer clearly because my internet is a little bad.
No, your internet held up well. Thank you. And I love how you touched about colonial frameworks. So my follow-up to the first question is, how can youth-led innovations today avoid replicating the same systems that exclude or perhaps erase cultural identity, whether this is in Africa or Asia or Latin America?
Yeah, thank you for that question also. So I think that what I have learned from these years is that the solutions come from the community and focus on the relationships instead of the KPIs or not like these famous metrics for projects. Instead, for example, culture, and yeah, it's something really difficult to measure, for example. So by starting from community, not from this part of having all with a framework of measurement, if we begin with the question like who who is the person that is at the center of this project, and yeah, like prioritizing these instead of just the outcomes, I think it's the to to really address a challenge. You know, when you hear the voice that behind the problems, when you start like looking more about the interest, the um and also the dreams of the people that are involved in the project. You know, you start like giving some these spaces to people that doesn't have it or didn't have you. So I have seen that when you co-create with, for example, artists, young people from community leaders. They design solutions that reflect memory and not just these market trends or another topic, no? So, um, yeah, we must be like cautious not to translate everything from value into metrics or productivity. And yeah, this part of languages, storytelling, really hold power. And even if they didn't fit in like a typical innovation templates or something like that, yeah, it's really amazing to to spread and to hear these voices, you know.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Engel. I love how you coined the phrase solutions come from the community. And I think Brian and Megan have both embodied that in the work that they're involved in. So I'll now move over to Megan and just, piggyback off of what Engel said. Megan, your work at Zana Africa and in ending period poverty has proven that innovation isn't just about tech. It's about reimagining dignity, access, and systems that work for all. So my question to you is, what lessons can youth-led innovators learn from the way that you've approached menstrual health as both a human rights issue and and also an opportunity for innovation?
Oof, yeah. Tech is important. Brian's demonstrated some great solutions that tech bring. I'm not a big fan of pretty shiny things that are kind of the sexy current must have, right? Even here right now at the World Health Assembly, everybody's talking about AI. And can we just talk to real people, please? And Also, there's a lot of huge risks for AI that nobody's talking about. And I've never been somebody to just join the bandwagon. I've never been somebody who, needs accolades to do the work. And I think if you're going to be in this systems change for the long haul, that's a pretty good framework to hold on to. I really want to echo what was just said as well. There's also this kind of looking to the West, and I say this as a white American who is also working on decolonization from my side. The West doesn't have many answers. We've actually created pretty much all the problems. Even the framework of the binary, right or wrong, black or white, yes or no, good or bad, is not an indigenous framework, right? People in the Kikuyu community that my husband is from before colonialism used to always leave grain out. Nobody went hungry. The idea of poverty was an abomination and just didn't exist. And so the current global cultural framework has created the problems that then it's actually not really solving, but just pretending to and spending a lot of money solving. So I think kind of like the most important thing is just don't buy into these narratives. And I love what was said about kind of going backwards, right? During menstruation, it used to be a beautiful time of connecting, right? You had an age set that learned, and you learned together from your elders, and there were freedoms and there were responsibilities. And then that's gotten taken away. And the West still doesn't have solutions for that, right? So we have to really understand our history, talk to the elders in our communities or our families, read voraciously, and really find those things that are the seeds from the past that are going to build those strong trees that will grow into this fruit of social change. I think that for me, kind of that is the case. I'm not in menstrual health trying to do something from the West. I mean, even the curriculum that we have, it's all story based. It's all real people going through real situations and telling that story. And it's anchored in comics because that's what resonates. There's not a single white person in it. And that's beautiful and important. And so I think that's really the way to go whatever you're in. And if you're in tech, really also thinking about that too, right? How do we create tech for the communities and for the solutions that we need? And how can the global South teach or help remember the global North better ways of being human, better ways of doing society, better ways of just like showing up in the world for each other, right? I mean, you even look at the issue of the LGBTQI community. They were two spirit people, beautiful, revered, important people in society. And this whole alienation is a real violation of human rights and dignity and equality. And why are we doing that? And why are we then reacting into those systems? Like, I really want us to remember a better way of being human, because the world cannot continue in the way we are in the Western patriarchal capitalistic system that we have. And so I still think that trifecta of the policy, products, and education is important, but the roots really matter to have those approaches. I hope that helps.
It really does. Thank you. Thank you so much. And just as a follow-up of that, of having real connections with real people and having real solutions for all the young impactors and innovators that are on this call today, how do we ensure that, our project isn't just a momentary thing, that it's not just a buzzword that, oh, okay, everyone's in AI, everyone's in tech, let me also just venture into that, even if you're not necessarily someone who cares about it. Maybe that, oh, that's where the money is at right now. So how do you ensure that your innovation, your project is something that you're deeply rooted about, but also sustainable? Could you perhaps speak to that?
You're asking me again, or you're asking? Oh, okay. How do we ensure? Sorry, I was ready for the conversation of somebody else.
No
How do we ensure
problem.
this? I would say, don't go it alone. Find a co-founder or co-founders, or better yet, find somebody else who's already doing it, who's slightly farther ahead than you, and join them. I don't know if you guys have seen the video of there's like some sort of dance festival or something, and there's a big hill, and there's this one guy looking totally crazy and dancing down the hill, and then there's another guy who comes and joins that, and then all these other people join, right? And I think those of us who are in Ashoka Fellows or who are these kind of system change creators, we tend to be the crazy first person dancing, but most of us might actually be the second crazy person dancing. And we don't all have to be the one to create our own new organization. And I think that that's one of the most important things for systems change in long term, right? The number of innovators that started out, I've been at this a long time, about maybe 18 or 20 years. The number of organizations that are still around are like this big.
Sure.
And I think, not just being in it for the quick thing, having partners that support you along the journey. Those partners can be a spouse or other life partner. It can also be co-founders, and engaging government early and co-creating with government. Government sometimes gets a really bad rap, and yes, there can be a lot of corruption, and not just in African countries, right? Lobbying in the US is just blatant corruption, right? But within every government system, there are change makers. And if you can find those people and work with them, you can make systems change much faster. But the thing is, you can't have as much ego. So if you're in it just to be like, yes, I did this thing, yay me, that's going to be a barrier to sustainable impact. You really have to give away success and elevate others in order to see that systems change. One little small anecdote about that, we just launched a report on online safety for kids with intellectual disabilities. And we had about 10 or 12 different line ministries come from government, everything from the Department of Criminal Investigation and Judiciary to the Ministry of Education, et cetera. And what was so beautiful is one of the men from the Ministry of Education was saying on the stage towards the end, these are our hotlines as the Ministry of Education. And he listed Childline, and he listed the Gender Violence Recovery hotline, and he listed the NIA Health Link as their owned hotline. And even the judiciary was like, this is our hotline. And that, to me, I was like never prouder, I think, than those moments, right? Because it's like, yes, this is yours. It's not Zana's, it's not Megan's, it's for Kenya, right? And if we can get that sense of this is ours, that collective, and it's almost kind of the Ubuntu philosophy, right? I am because we are, kind of similar philosophy. And I'm sure there are other beautiful words in Spanish or in indigenous cultures in Mexico. That sense of that's what we need to have. And that's not what's celebrated. Even Ashoka, it elevates individuals, not the collective. And I want to see that collective, because that's what is going to sustain for the decades and for the generations. And that's when we make real intergenerational change.
Thank you so much for speaking to that. I'll now head over to Brian, who's perhaps on the flip side of the coin, someone who's building scalable tech solutions across sectors. And I'd just love to hear your opinion on what is the role that you think young youth-led digital innovation can play in solving complex societal challenges, especially in emerging markets like Africa's. And just as a, by the way, the majority of the youth impactors that are on this call today are from Africa. So I'm sure they'd also love to hear your perspective on that.
Awesome. Thank you for the question. I believe that the youth have a very important role to play, especially in Africa, because the youth are in a very special position to, first of all, understand the complexity of the challenges that are in Africa. And number two, to come up with new frameworks to solve those challenges. And I do agree with Megan that, like, you know, buzzword ideas won't solve this problem. So creating an AI system that solves corruption won't actually solve corruption in Africa. But by actually fully understanding the depth of the challenge, that is where the youth in Africa now can now be able to create a holistic approach, a holistic solution to solve such challenges. And the beauty about it is that currently there are many solutions that are coming up that embrace this holistic approach. And so it is important that technology is part of this solution, especially in Africa. But also part of this technology has to involve the people. And I'll give you an example, a political example, especially here in Kenya. You can see a huge uprising from the young people where they keep the government accountable on very individual things. Well, these things previously were not there. But because of technology, the voice of the people can now come up and be very visible and be very vocal, and the knowledge gap that was existing before has already been filled through technology. And so that's one of the ways in which technology can actually be part of that reform and part of that change. um, another advantage and another role I would say that youth-led digital innovation has is with efficiency. You find that previously the infrastructure that was there to solve the challenges was very inefficient. And so I'll give an example of the banking system. You'll find that previously, before new ideas came along, you had to go to the bank, you had to have a membership. To create an account, you had to be sponsored by someone had to write a letter, and there was a whole bureaucratic process to it. But right now, through innovation, through technology, the young people have been able to create very new ideas in which has spread banking to the lowest level, where someone in a town like Isiolo, which is a town in Kenya, can be able to access banking services without having to go to Nairobi or go to a populous town where they can actually be able to access a physical bank. And so that is part of what I see is the role where the youth can lead this innovation. Yes.
Thank you so much for your insights, Brian. That's really, really quite insightful. I really wish we could continue this conversation, but we are now going to break off into our breakout rooms. This has really been inspiring and deeply insightful, but I'm sure that in the breakout rooms, we'll continue to have even more insightful conversations. So I'll now hand over to Cameron, who will just explain how the process is going to be working.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Brian, Angela, and Megan, for your contributions. Some really fantastic ideas and fantastic conversations. So folks, if you've been with us the last few weeks, you kind of know the process already, but Caitlin is going to move us into breakout rooms. Angela and Brian are going to move into breakout rooms. Megan is going to stay with us here. And some of us will move along to kind of help with the conversation. But this is your time and your space to ask questions, to pose ideas, to create connections, whatever might have come to mind as you were hearing our three speakers speak about their experiences in this particular theme. We'll come back then in about 23, 24 minutes, give or take, and come back to the main room. So, Caitlin, if you're ready to go, a little notification on your screen should pop up to say to add to a particular, join a particular breakout room.
Yep, they're open and people should be able to move right into them.
Amazing, people are moving.
And for Angel and Brian, we labeled your room so you can select the room that has your name on it.
Yeah, if you go to breakout rooms in the corner, open it, you should see them. And should be have an option to join. Okay, Brian is off.
And Futhari, if you don't mind, I think, yeah, just going with Brian. That'd be helpful. Belina went with Uncle. And then for folks who are still in the main room, feel free to unmute yourself or pose any questions in the chat, and Cameron and I we can help facilitate and get those questions answered with Megan.
If no one has a question just yet. Oh wait, no, Lennox, do you have a question?
Oh, I just want to thank you just to be part. Just thank you so much. I just had brilliant ideas from people, and thank you, Megan.
Lennox, I'm sorry. I don't think your audio is working very well at the minute. You're kind of breaking up for us.
Fellowship, and
Yes, unfortunately, Lennox, sorry, your audio keeps cutting in and out.
Mm.
If you want to put your question into the chat, and Megan could be able to read it and answer it that way, happy to do that. Apologies about that. Did anyone else have a question they would like to ask? If not, Megan, I have loads of questions. I'll pick one to start with, and I think it's a conversation that we've been having in some of the work that I'm doing, particularly around young people, is there's a lot of work or space or spaces like this that empower young people or tell people to feel empowered. But do you have any guidance or advice, or is there an experience in your life where you felt kind of imposter syndrome, or why am I doing this, or I'm not the right person to be doing this, or any guidance you have for young people in terms of tackling those feelings of self-doubt, let's say?
Oh, I rarely feel like I'm the right person to be doing this, but nobody else is, so I get to be that person. I've had various kind of journeys in my own faith, but kind of with the menstrual health issue, it was really this question of like, okay, here I am, send me if you need to. And I think whatever we believe in a higher power or not, sometimes we're placed in a position that we don't necessarily expect. We don't always necessarily think we're the right person or want to be the right person. But we become the right person by virtue of being there. And so I think just embracing that is kind of freeing, right? There's no other right person because we are the person. There's a late politician, Tom Mboya, who said, there is no Superman. Like, we are the one we've been waiting for. Right. And so if this is your vision and you can't let it go because it's gripped you for whatever reason, then you are the right person. Sometimes for myself, I have a lot of humility and sometimes doubt by being, a white American in Kenya. There's a lot of complexity unpacking that. And I'm not always the right person to represent my organization, right? So I think sometimes it's important for me to send my other team members to different events to elevate other people's voices and not always be the representative. Now that we have a lot more Gen Zer staff, they're also representing in Gen Z and not myself because I'm no longer, that age. So I think you can be the right person, but not the right person for every situation. And if it's your passion, I think it's just good to get comfortable sitting there. I don't know. I'll stop rambling now and you can ask me another question.
No, it's not rambling at all. It's really, really interesting. I think it's a conversation a lot of young people have when they're not even just when they're starting out in this kind of advocacy space, but I think across lots of
Mhm.
different times in our life we kind of question, oh God, how did I get here? So it's good to hear how you mix kind of that humility with also owning a space, saying, I actually am the right person to be here. I like that. We're not waiting for Superman. I like that concept.
And also saying I don't know is a very powerful thing, right? We never have to know everything. And to say, hey, I don't know, that's a really great question. Let me look into it and get back to you. I think is important, because there's some ways in which we sometimes feel, oh my gosh, I need to know everything about everything that I'm doing. And actually, I usually have no clue half the time, right? But I try to find people that are smarter than me, to be a mentor, to be a guide. I read a lot. And I think that helps, to just have that freedom to say, I don't have any of the answers, but together we can figure it out.
Amazing. Thank you. Did anyone else in the room have a question they would like to ask? Either unmuting or throwing it into the chat. Oh, if not,
We've got somebody.
Samuel.
Samuel has come off mute.
Samuel.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
All right. Hi, Megan. Thank you so much for your insights on the innovation. I'm called Samuel Oliha Peter Amok. I'm from South Sudan, but currently in Rwanda. So I have a questions actually. As we know that social change is more than awareness campaign, and my question is, how do we ensure that our innovation as youth address the root cause of the problem and not only the symptoms of the social issues that we are trying to address?
And what particular issues are
I
you
don't know if
trying
you
to
are
address right now? Yeah.
Currently, I'm working on an initiative that I'm trying to address. Actually, that is how the mental health issues contribute to misuse of antibiotics by youth.
It's a great question. I think continuing to remain curious and trying to dig and dig and dig, that includes history, right? I mean, you come from a country that's experienced a lot of war and a lot of pain and a lot of trauma. You're in a country right now that's experienced the same. Understanding, a lot of intergenerational trauma, a lot of things called ACEs, if you know those. I forget what ACE stands for, if anybody's in mental health and helps me, but they're like unique, specific problems that the traumatic events in childhood, adverse childhood experiences, that's what they're called. Sorry, I think I'm doing some thing with my hands and my video is moving. Understanding the latest in psychology, reading free journals online, things like that, talking to elders, talking to the youth, being curious, right? Because usually it's layer after layer after layer. A lot of these things are like onions, and there's not necessarily one root cause. There's usually a whole bunch of things that have come together. My husband is Kenyan, as I mentioned, and runs a trauma-informed school. And so these are some of the things that, he's thinking deeply about, and I'm learning alongside him. But I think you have to address those multiple issues, right? The intergenerational stuff, the national context, the local cultural context, the family context, and the individual context. I think those are sort of the peeling off of the onion layers to try to really get to that root cause. And so if you're just addressing something on the family level, but not addressing the community, the culture, the nation, the continent, I think one can sometimes miss out. Does that help?
Yeah, actually, sure. It helps a lot.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Keep up the beautiful work. I see there's some other questions in the chat. Do you want me to answer those, Cameron?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you
Okay.
so much, Samuel, for your question. If you want to address Mercy's question first, which is, What advice can you give someone starting a project for adolescent girls in their local community? What challenges did you face and how did you navigate them?
Mm-hmm. I think the question is what do the girls say that they want and need? What do their families say that they want and need? Do those align? Are they different? Why are they different? How do you navigate that? When I began this, it was just literally we had moved our kids down to a town called Oliotoktok, which is in the foothills of Mount Kilimanjaro. And so I'd have a lot of these very late night conversations because I was there all the time. And just allowing kids to ask questions and just answering them in an honest, rights-based way is absolutely transformational. And what we do is we have kids write down their questions on little pieces of paper. In whatever language and whatever framing they want. And then we just gather them, shuffle them, maybe organize them into kind of thematic groups. And then we just read them out loud and we answer those questions. And there is such a power when the girls, and I'm going to say boys too, but I'm going to use girls for this, but when the adolescents hear their own questions read aloud, about safety, about uncomfortable things, about whatever it is, and then they get answered, it's absolutely transformational. And in every single community, you're going to have the exact same arc of all of those questions about reproductive health and safety. If you're now looking at, economic autonomy or ending female genital cutting or all these other things, those are different. And those require kind of a different approach. Tostan is a really amazing organization in West Africa that you can look at that does some really beautiful systems change at community levels and really engaging elders in that. But I think the challenges are similar in finding voice, in being heard, and in being equipped to make choices that align with the life that they want and not the life that they're told they have to have.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Megan. I can see that Mercy has put a love heart reaction, so I think she appreciated your answer. The other question we have in the chat from Lennox is, I'm trying to solve water scarcity with wells that are community managed, quite bulky. What could be the best way to scale, because it's much of a service and most times funds are given to people whose startups are making products?
I guess I would ask, what does scale mean to you? I don't know if you can type that in the comments, but water scarcity is a big issue. There have been a lot of problems. I know World Vision, I think there was a case study a long time ago that World Vision kept drilling all these wells and nobody, and sorry to malign World Vision, it might be another organization, but nobody was fixing the wells because the women actually liked the time that they took to walk to the wells, that were farther away and to get the water, because that was an important time for them to connect. And otherwise they were stuck in all their individual homes, right? So I'm assuming that you're part of that community. You're solving an issue that the community is kind of asking for. And so then the question about that scale is, are you having trouble getting funding for the wells? How many do you need to serve the community's needs? How big is that community? And then are you going to try to be doing that for other communities as well? So I'm being a little bit nerdy about answering the question, but it's because I just have so many questions about your question to try to help you. I do agree with you that products are easier, but a well is a product, and there is a lot of funding in what's called WASH, or water, sanitation, and health. And so access to clean water is a very important funding priority for a lot of people, even in this current climate. So I would say researching who are the organizations that are funding wells. Also potentially valuing the amount of time that the community might be contributing to that well, to say, hey, we have, and I'm making up numbers here for you, but we have 25 people who are able to spend 10 hours each digging, and at $1 an hour, that's this amount of money, can also help, because a lot of donors want to see that community ownership. You could also Google who else has done well successfully and ask them for mentorship, and to see if they can, take a Zoom call with you or a Google Meets call to talk through what they went through and how they approach that. Because there are a lot of people that have been trying to do that. I know they're faith-based organizations and they're secular organizations, and Rotary is a big proponent of wells. So if you have a local Rotary club, you could approach them and talk about putting together a project, and they can often do kind of matching grants with other Rotary clubs in other countries that amplifies the amount of money that they can give. And so I don't think you have to be penalized because you don't have a product. I do think having a durable solution, such as a well, provided that the water table is enough that it won't run out soon, is a very attractive solution for many people. I hope that helps.
Amazing. And he also put in this.
Thank you, Megan.
Yeah, to just gaming.
Oh, look at you, Caitlin, on the ball. Thanks. And if you're a younger person, Rotaract is a great networking for personal growth and for professional relationships. So look into Rotaract as well. It should probably be somewhere on the site.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Megan. I think people are getting a lot of information that's really helpful for different projects that they want to do. Does anyone else have a question or a comment or something they would like to discuss or throw out to the group?
We have about 5 minutes left. If no one has a question, I have a question, perhaps. Good. I guess my question is, I'm picking up a lot of, you were listening to the needs, you're thinking about the end user, the end product. Was there ever a time where you needed to pivot what you were doing because of the feedback? And how did that feel, or how was that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think innovation is a constant evolution. In my experience, it's kind of a poor example, but it's the best one I've got. It's kind of like if you have this beautiful fabric and you want to make a dress or an outfit from it. For me, it's like I can kind of see it, but I can't see it. I don't know. I don't know. Is it going to be off the shoulder? Is it going to be zip on the side? But I know kind of how it's going to feel. And so kind of keeping that North Star, and by North Star, I mean that, like, what is when everything else is done, what is it that you want to see? And for me, it was PADS and rights-based health education, so that girls could know, access, and actualize their full health rights, so that they could be fully supported by their families and communities and nation, right? And so for me, it kind of doesn't matter how we get there. And you need these other people with a tailoring outfit. Like I can't do it myself. I'm a terrible seamstress, right? I need all these other people. And so it does take a different turn from what you maybe thought was going to be there. But it's not necessarily a failure. It's not even necessarily a pivot. It's just kind of a constant evolution. And to see that process of unfolding, just like we're constantly growing as individuals, right? This entity that you're giving birth to is a thing. I call Zana my first child. Like I had my second child is what was the one I birthed, right? And allowing it to take that journey. the biggest one that I mentioned was when I always wanted to have the health education inside the pad package, and then we couldn't manufacture in Kenya for a lot of reasons, and so we had to import from China, and it was so fully automated that they couldn't do the health education, and I was really bummed out. But then we created this curriculum that's actually kind of like this rite of passage for kids to go through, and that's better. That's so much better, because now 13 million kids in a couple of years are actually going to go through a rights-based health education curriculum, right? And then I never imagined that we would have the hotline and the chatbot. But then it was like, well, how do we keep putting health information in alongside the pads if we can't put it inside? And so kind of it's a pivot, but it's also just an evolution. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a really tangible point of you working within the constraints. Like that is such a good tangible point of the factory couldn't do one thing, but they could do this thing, and it's actually turning into such, a really good.
Yeah. The last thing as we go, Bill Gates is credited as saying this quote that I really like a lot. He says, "We greatly overestimate what we can do in a year, but we greatly underestimate what we can do in a decade." And I've been at this for pretty much 20 years. And I think that that's really true. And don't just think about the KPIs for every quarter. Yeah, like focus and get stuff done. But a year, sometimes you just can't get everything done that you want to get done. And it's easy to really beat yourself up and to feel bad and to feel you haven't accomplished a lot. But when you keep at it, I mean, suddenly I'm here and all of our products are here. People used to think I was bonkers because I would say we want pads and health education and we want all these different things. But now that it's like, oh, this and this, they're like, oh, I get it. And that took an exceptionally long time, more than 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 grant cycles, right? And that's what it takes to do systemic change. And so, just for those of you that are really seeking that, give yourself some self-love and some freedom to allow it to take the time, so that it can become what it's supposed to be. And you can become who you're supposed to be during it.
It was like excellently timed to finish exactly as the breakout rooms came back. Wonderful timing. Caitlin, I'll take my lead from you to see when everyone is back.
Sounds good. I think that most people should be back by now. Yep.
Hey, amazing. So thank you so much, folks, for engaging in that conversation and for coming along on the journey today with us for youth-led social innovation. Just as I pull up the information for this week's feedback survey, I wanted to reflect a little bit on the last 6 weeks of this series. So those of you that have been with us for the past 6 weeks and those that are maybe just joining today, we started this conversation with conscious leadership. So we started this conversation rooted in how we can lead with empathy, lead with conviction, and lead with justice, and how we lead in a sustainable way that not only the young people of today, but the young people that we will hopefully mentor over the next number of years also learn to lead with that level of empathy as well. We've moved on then to global solidarity, where we looked at how we could connect movements across the globe and how when we work together collectively that we're stronger, and that in a world of division that actually us uniting together helps to do some of the collective change that we've talked about. Moving on to week 3, where we looked at participatory action research, which looked specifically at how do we do ethical research that has actual real life outcomes for people, whilst including those people in the lived experience or those that live those different experiences in that particular situation as well. So how do we do better research, better quality research, but research that's co-created by the communities that we're trying to serve? We then would have moved on to looking at ethical AI, where we looked at this explosion of artificial intelligence over the last number of years and how people are leveraging that in their communities, what that means, how we do that in a sustainable and ethical way without creating more problems for those most at risk for things like climate action and climate change, or climate inaction, should I say, and climate change. And how we leverage some of the work that's being done in AI in the work that we do across this movement. Last week, then, we would have had week 5, where we talked about the importance of storytelling, where we looked at how our memories and stories shape the world around us, and also how that helps us to achieve collective action. Building on a lot of the work that we had done in the previous weeks, how do we take some of those skills and tools of being a conscious leader, looking at global solidarity, doing ethical research, using AI ethically, and how do we combine our stories to make it relatable to those around us? And then today we had a wonderful session around how we can put that into practice and how we can put that into real life examples from Angel, Megan, and Brian sharing those experiences with us, from very holistic and community-based and cultural-based projects to how the tech world and tech innovations kind of shape the world that we are in today, and how we can do that as young people. And I want to end as I share the survey in the chat here with you. I wanted to end with a quote from Ruth Larry, our facilitator from today, which talks about young people are one of the most underestimated forces in the world. But through work like this and groups like this, we will achieve collective change. And we really thank you for being on this journey with us. There will be some follow-ups after this webinar series where we'll put together some of the information that we've gleaned from all the different speakers over the last 6 weeks to provide educational tools and frameworks for not only the cohorts, the For Youth by Youth cohort members, but also for the other participants who came along to our sessions. We will also have the recordings of all the other sessions available very soon for you on the Towers Network website, so you can go back and look and see about any of the sessions that you might not have been able to make it to. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to our speakers. Thank you to our facilitator, Ruth Larry, to the Tufts University, to the Towers Network, Valina and Caitlin for being on this journey for the last 6 weeks with me as well, and to all of you for joining us. This is the QR code for our last survey of the webinar series, so we'd appreciate it if you could fill that out for us, and the link is also in the chat. So thank you so much, folks, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.